Hi guys, Chase E here with Bite-Sized Success, and in this video we're going to be talking about your relationship to work. As you get into, reading self-development books, you'll come across Tim Ferriss's, 4-hour work week, and, where it sounds, all great to work only 4 hours a week, but then you'll come across other people who are also successful, who are working an insane amount of hours, like Elon Musk, and it creates a bit of friction between the two, because are you supposed to be optimizing for working a lot, or should you be optimizing for working a little? And so in this video I want to really kind of break down that concept and just create a very clear picture of what your attitude towards work should be in order to turn your dreams into goals. So without further ado, let's hit the whiteboard and let's hash it out. Alright guys, the first extreme we're going to be talking about is the 4-hour work week. So the attitude that's geared towards working less. Now at first, I want to briefly explain why you naturally optimize for working less. Where does the idea of laziness, stem from? It actually stems from your brain. Your brain requires a lot of energy to think, to pretty much just do what it does, right? It takes a lot of resources. So the subconscious, the part that's responsible for all your automatic systems, what it does is it optimizes for your necessities, and then anything above that, it doesn't consider to be critical, and so it wants to conserve energy, and so it actually fights you on it. So if you're starving, then you don't need motivation, right? Your subconscious will optimize for you to work and get food. But if you have food, then your brain's gonna fight you on doing anything extra, which is why it's hard for us to do anything in the world that we live in, because we're not really dealing with with issues like that. There's just so much abundance everywhere. We're not really dealing with necessities anymore, and so we're having to create new levels of discipline that kind of break past the way our subconscious is geared. And so that's the reason why we generally are attracted to a 4-hour work week. But the problem with optimizing for a 4-hour work week, because we want to have a ton of fun, is the problem of, or really the idea of, duality and adaptability. So duality is the idea that we wouldn't be able to understand anything without contrast, right? So you wouldn't know exactly what white is without black, without the color black. You wouldn't understand what pain is without pleasure. On different scales, you just wouldn't be able to measure it if you didn't have an opposite to it. And so fun and work are in many cases opposites. And so if you have a life that's completely fun and you don't have a contrast, you're going to actually have a lesser level of fun, because fun is the only thing you're doing. There's no contrast for you, so you can't enjoy it as much. And a lot like how drugs work, is you're going to want more and more of it to actually feel it, but the reality is that because you don't have a contrast, you're not going to be able to feel it at all. And then that plays into adaptability, where your body will adapt to how much fun you're having and then want more and more. And with the lack of contrast, it wants a lot more, a lot faster, to the point where it actually becomes dangerous. I think of how many people are actually retiring, and everyone wants to retire early and have all this fun, focus on themselves and all this kind of stuff. But if you look at the data, people who retire early, they die earlier, right? People need to have purpose. They need to be, they're optimized to work, to be productive, to help others. We're social creatures. We need to be serving people, and that's how we get a main source of happiness. So my main problem with optimizing for working less and less is the fact that the duality and adaptability are major factors in that they rob us of a lot of pleasure, a lot of happiness that we could actually have if we actually were able to keep up that contrast of work and fun. And so that leads us into our next extreme, which is Elon Musk's 17-hour workday. Now, I straight off the bat think that's a little too intense. I mean, if you have no responsibilities or anything like that, and you love working, then by all means go ahead, work 17-hour days. But I have a wife, I have a kid, and I would not be doing them justice if I spent 17 hours, working and not spending any time with them. And I also wouldn't be getting, the amount of sleep that I need on top of, eating. So for me and my goals and my responsibilities, that is just unrealistic. And so I'll assume, generally the same for you. But, maybe instead of, 17, what about 10? So Elon Musk, he talks a lot about, if you work, or if the average worker works 40 hours a week, and the reality is that they really don't, because most of the time they're kind of just goofing off. But if the average worker does work 40 hours a week and you work 80, you will get to where they're going twice as fast. So if you're technically behind them in like skill set and experience, just the raw data of putting in the extra time will get you to where they're going faster, which I think is really is a good point, and it's really powerful. I agree with him. If you put in more time, not only will you get that contrast, right, you'll actually be able to enjoy your life more. And that's true for me. I find on the periods of life where I actually have to work a lot, 70, 75 hours a week, I enjoy that free time a lot more than I normally would because of that contrast. And so I'd be robbing myself of that if I just didn't work as much. So that's one of the things that I really like about working more rather than less. And, one of the secrets that I found to doing that, right, because I'm sure the question in your mind is, okay, yeah, that's great. I need to be working, longer days, or I should be optimizing to work more rather than optimizing to work less. How does that actually look, or what does that actually look like? Because I hate work. I don't enjoy it at all. And I found the key is to fall in love with the grind. Right? Fall in love with what you're doing. And that's the biggest thing. Is I think a lot of us have a negative association with work based off of, schooling. We were very young, and you kind of forced in the school system, and you're forced to read books and study things that just aren't interesting to you. And I think through that there's a negative association with learning and with work in general. And so that, it's compounded when you get into the workforce and you have to go for an entry-level position, and you're doing something, flipping burgers is not exactly the funnest thing in the world. But the key is to focus on, loving the grind, and to do that, you have to love what you're doing. And a little hack that I figured out, when doing jobs I didn't enjoy doing, is you don't have to fall in love with the job or the work that you're doing, but you can fall in love with some aspects of it, like improving, like getting better, the principles that you're learning through the job. Like when I worked at a restaurant for a long time, and one of the principles that I like to improve on is being able to communicate with people, and just getting better at reading people, and just leveraging that skill to leverage my job, because I never fully enjoyed doing what I was doing, because it's very stressful and all that. But if you can kind of focus on those core aspects and level those up, that's kind of another little hack to kind of get past that if you're in a job that you don't like. But if you're fortunate enough to where you can choose what you want to do, then by all means, the greatest hack of all is to do something that you enjoy for work, and then you can do that for a long time. You actually pull those hours, and it won't feel like work, right? 17 hours working at McDonald's is a lot harder than 17 hours working on a passion project of yours that's actually making you money. And I really feel like Simon Sinek says it best, and here's what he says. Working on something hard that we don't care about is stress. Working hard on something we do care about is passion. So I really I love that quote. I really agree with him, where it's all about aligning your work with what you actually care about, so that you can actually put in an insane amount of hours that will actually get you to the top and actually get you that dream life you want. Or the key isn't to work less, the key is to work on what actually excites you. And I'll end it with a quote from Thomas Edison, a man who died with almost 1,100 patents, I think it was, and obviously is remembered because of everything that he was able to accomplish. And here's his take on the matter. So if we had an opportunity to sit Thomas down and ask him, how do you think, what do you think about this? This is exactly what he would say. And I quote, "I'm wondering what would have happened to me if some fluent talker had converted me to the theory of the 8-hour day and convinced me that it was not fair to my fellow workers to put forth my best efforts in my work. I'm glad that the 8-hour day had not been invented when I was a young man. If my life had been made up of 8-hour days, I do not believe I could have accomplished a great deal. This country would not amount to as much as it does if the young men of 50 years ago had been afraid that they might earn more if they were paid." And basically what he's saying, he's just saying that, he would not have been able to accomplish everything that he accomplished if he was only working 8-hour days. He had to put in the time to get to where he was in order to have the impact that he had. And he's basically just kind of spelling it out. He's like, look, the country that we live in would not be the country it was if people had that same attitude. And so, that's something I think that we all need to adopt. Just have the mindset of working more as opposed to the mindset of working less. You don't want to work less. You want to work on something that you're passionate about that actually has impact. Because work is good, work is profitable. Your dream life is on the other side of work. So you have to learn to love it, and you'll be able to actually turn your dreams into real life goals. And that's what we're all about. So thank you for watching. Subscribe if you want the tools and knowledge to turn your dreams into goals. That's what this channel is all about. And until next time, keep putting in that work. Chasey signing off.